Okay, so we marked the hole for the servo. Now we're going to take an X-Acto knife and cut. Now, I've done this a few times, so I'm not cutting right through my wing. But if you want, I'll show you a little trick here. Take your servo, using these 8 grams, and set your knife on it. Now mark your knife at how deep, the deepest point you have to be for your servo. You see I put a line on my knife. So now I know I'm cutting not to go any deeper than that, because that's as deep as I have to go to cover the edge of my servo. And I don't want to cut through the wing anyways. I'm marking my X-Acto knife, I can do that. Now, there's many ways of doing this. You can cut a bunch of little lines in it. I like to use tweezers, some people use pliers. You can just start pulling this stuff out. Now, you've cut around. You don't want to pull it any deeper than you have to. Because it's been cut, now I'm just going to pull out this type of styrofoam. Let's come off the servo. There. Now you got it. I'm quite confident. But if you want to stop more frequently and test fit, you can. Now I know this servo is going to go down in there, just like that. When I glue it in, it'll be just about flush with the wing. So I'll take just a little bit more out, and I'll be ready to glue the servo in. I use the GWS glue or epoxy to glue the servos in. So, there. Now, we really don't want to glue the servos in until you do a radio test and center them. Because once they're in, they're hard to take the servo horns out. But, just for a test fit, you have our 2 servos are going to go there and there in the wing. The wiring will go up the center here and up inside. We'll drill a hole. There. Now, we will have control rods have to go into the ailerons to measure them. Take a straight line from your servo horn. I'm going to put a dot here. It's going to orient me where I have to put my servo horn in the wing. Make that nice and straight. Oh, that's just in that hinge. Okay. There. That's where I have to put my servo horns, or the horns for the ailerons. That's the servos now. Okay. Now earlier, we glued the hinges to the elevator. Now we'll test fit. See that? Make sure this fits nice. It does. So take it off. Apply the glue to our hinges. And we will put it back together. Now remember, I made that little dot so I knew which was top and bottom on this, so I don't have to question myself or wonder. Make sure it's centered quite nice. There. Make sure it bends right. And set that aside to dry. We finished the elevator. Well, here we are. We're going to do some small pieces right now. We got our body done. For the first time, we're going to mix some epoxy. Okay, before you get the epoxy completely mixed, make sure you scratch the back of the parts we're going to use. Today, those will be these two parts with the holes in them, and this one metal piece. So, we take our mixed epoxy, check the spots if there's any glue or it's not smooth, fix it, make it smooth. Put a little epoxy here, that's where the metal goes. The epoxy back here. And a little epoxy in here. Now I'm going to put one of these holes there. Remember, I'm using 5-minute epoxy for this. The other holes there. We can't scratch the metal. The little piece of metal goes right there in the epoxy. Okay, so mixing small amount of epoxy, I put a piece of metal there. And the small black pieces of the two holes there, they fit the cutout, and the other one under there. I didn't use much epoxy at all. Now, set this aside to dry. It'll be done in 5 minutes. While that's drying, take the little black piece that a nut fits into, and the one little tiny nut. Squeeze it into there. Make sure it fits really good. And then with just a little bit of this thin CA glue, just around the outside of it. Next to none. There we go. Set that aside, let the CA glue dry. And we start working on this wheel. This is the stock wheel that comes with it. It's very lightweight. It's really noisy when it lands on the asphalt. So I have a little GWS rubber wheel. It's still really light, but it's nice and quiet and sounds way better when it lands. So I took the bent wire in the kit, one, and then one of the small white plastic pieces. I'm going to have to glue that on. I have a little bit of epoxy left here. Just a little bit, eh? The epoxy, make sure it don't touch the tire. Hold that on there so it doesn't hit the tire. Set it down. There.